Hiya Stewart, lovely to meet up with you at the range last night and do some work on your game. Obviously a lot of information being handed out to you in regards to the sort of idiosyncratic look of your swing. So these swings, as you suggested yourself, very short, very wristy, and it's producing a lot of sort of good shots, but also a lot of slappy shots, or shots that are hooking. And your friends have suggested that obviously you reduce the amount of wrist hinge that you've got at the top of the backswing. When you do create that much wrist hinge, you have to have a very much of a whip cracking effect coming through the golf ball. And you can see, in order to crack that whip, the body's got to stall before then continuing to move. So if we just play that through as we did last night, there's a stalling of the body here to allow the club to catch up with the arms and the body and to get back into an inline or online position. So you're trying to reduce the amount of wrist hinge you have at the top. You're experiencing difficulty, and last night was about really going over why that is the case. And it's all to do with what we call a kinematic sequence. If one part of the body is positioned incorrectly, it has a knock-on effect to another part. Now, excuse me, looking at your setup position, we started from the ground and worked up. We talked about the effects. Feet are very square at setup. With the feet in such a square position at setup, that positions the knees inwards, which makes it very, very difficult to turn the hips during the backswing. So if we just run this through, feet are turned in, knees are turned in, hips can't turn. If the hips can't turn, the shoulders can't turn. Remember what we talked about, without turning your hips, you can only turn your shoulders around about 40 degrees. Now, if all you can do is turn your shoulders 40 degrees without moving your hips, and the shoulders need to travel 90 degrees, then we have to turn the hips 45 to 50 degrees. If we don't turn the hips, the shoulders can't continue to turn. That means the arms can't travel, which means if we're going to get the club to parallel, we have to have excessive wrist hinge. So we've got feet turned in, knees turned in, hips aren't turning, shoulders won't turn, left arm won't travel, wrists have to hinge. If we take a little look here at Tiger, first thing we notice here, this is Tiger at the Open the other week at Lytham. Both feet turned out. That's one of the changes. That's the first change he made under the tutelage of Sean Foley. That's to take a little bit of pressure off his knee and his Achilles. With the feet turned out, the knees are turned out. That's allowing the hips to turn, which allows the shoulders to turn, which allows the left arm to travel, which requires less wrist hinge. So you can see there, Tiger has got about 45 degree hip turn and about 90 degrees of shoulder turn. So the idea of the hips not turning with elite players is a fallacy. And you can see there that the left knee has flexed inwards and the trail knee has started to straighten compared to where they were with a dress. So it's a linkage system. Get the footwork right, get the knee action right, get the hips working correctly, get the shoulders working better, allowing the arms to swing appropriately, allowing the wrists to set in the correct manner. Now I want you to pay attention here to Tiger's left foot. This is something we talked about last night during the session. Even with a better foot flirt at address, during the downswing, the left foot still moves a little bit. Now that, in my opinion, suggests that his left foot should be flowed out a little bit more to start with. But it's a lot better foot action and leg action than he had previously under the tutelage of Hank Haney. So what we've got now is I'm just going to run this through to the top. We spent the session really just trying to make sure that we have the maximum amount of hip turn. Now you can see here on this one, feet are turned out more, and you're going to try and max out the hip turn. Now the hip turn can still improve, but look how much more travel you've got on the left arm now. Look how much higher the hands are. And when we look at it from down the line, you can see a big difference at the top of the backswing. Daylight between the forearms, a little bit of daylight between the legs, much more hip turn than what we're seeing here, as can be seen by the way the knees have worked. Too much flex in the right knee limits the hip's capacity to turn. So in order to remedy the wrist hinge, which we need to do in subsequent sessions, we have to improve the setup position and the manner in which the hips work on the way back, because that has a knock-on effect in the distance that the left arm and the butt of the club can travel during the backswing. Much bigger shoulder turn, much more travel in the arms at the end of the session, and a much more consistent look through the hip area, not quite as much of a stall as you're coming through. You still stall, but you don't stall as early. Hopefully that sheds some light or adds some clarification to what we discussed last night, and you can move forward with your golf, and look forward to working with you again in a few weeks' time. Well done.